Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Deku was the Emerald Wendigo Part 2. If you guys enjoy this what if and want to see part 3, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story Hector de Troy from Wattpad. So let's start the video. Before they retreated to inform Yue and other heroes of the situation, Izuku and Manuel took 10 minutes to make sure their target and possible associates did not teleport nearby. Once done, both got to the nearest HPSC Hero Surveillance Center to report LOV's possible involvement with Stain. Manuel asked his sidekick to take care of calling immediate reinforcement, before calling Nezu to inform him of their newfound sign about potential LOV's activity in Hosu. While he waited for Yue's principal to respond, he was getting quite anxious about the potential relations between the hero killer and the League. Stain was already a big problem alone. He was not really looking forward to see what he could do, backed up by an organization with enough resources to attack Yue directly. While Manuel was discussing with the principal of Yue, Izuku had to hide a major event from the heroes. He was dealing with something that the Wendigo had foolishly almost forgotten, guides that he though had gone mute forever. The voices of the moon had returned. With this fact came again the visceral and primal need to hunt, to strike his prey unseen. All tried to teach him not enjoy such things, but his body and mind could not deny the pure bliss of bathing in BLD and tearing apart flesh while showering in the dim light of a full moon. It has been months now that he had his last full-fledged hunt, and until now he always thought that all the human meat and BLD freely served to him would have quenched his bestial urges. But now, in front of a wall made of glass at the top of Manuel's agency, bathed in moonlight, now he felt it. Now he realized. As he looked down on a black city rotted to the core with felony, murder, villains, and corrupted heroes forgetting that they were preys, while he was here being deprived of a good hunt for months. He started to understood that hunger was not the only thing defining him. Here and now his senses were at their peak, and could smell and hear the sweet BLD below. Izuku, the sweet BLD, it's intoxicating, and the moon it sings to me again, it would made a man sick, but I now that I am no man. Manuel, Midoriya. Good news, since Nezu and Yue as a whole have complete faith in your smell and judgment, we are about to receive all the backup we could need. Endeavor is even joining us since he is nearby and adamant to get his hands on the hero killer. My sidekicks have also contacted Ingenium to update him. He is waiting for us right now. In normal circumstances, Izuku would have informed the pro-hero of his disagreement with the N-Degree 2 presence. He was a forefront heavy hitter, careless, and who openly hated discretion, and this was the worst possible approach you could think of with the type of prey that is Stain. But right now the Wendigo could not bring up his displeasure. It did not help that this problematic was now bothering him because of a selfish reason. Because with the sort of trance he was put in by the melodious song of the full moon, the mission was not for the people anymore, nor was it for righteousness. No, now the mission was for him, for the predator inside. And all good hunters despise competition. Izuku, then let us not waste more time. The field is calling us. We must answer. Manuel, you're all right. Midoriya. You seem to have more difficulty in your diction. Izuku, worry not sir, I shall deal with it alone. Manuel, okay, I trust you enough kid. Izuku, if so may I ask to hunt alone? It was only after 15 minutes of non-stop argument between Izuku, Manuel, the sidekicks and other pro-heroes that Midoriya finally managed to have the authorization he wanted to make the travel for Ingenium's location alone. It was a hard fight, because even if he had a few supporters, none could miss the fact that he was getting more and more unstable. Manuel even took a minute with him alone to ask him if he was sure of what he wished for, as he saw Izuku's muscles stiffing, his fur standing up, and the low growl he was constantly trying to suppress. He won his case by simply stating that other people eyeing him all the way would only make things worse. Now he was on his way towards the rallying point to meet up with the full team. However, because of his urges currently eating him from the inside, he was moving like he would have back then. When he was still wild, when he was still free. How he missed those times when he was on the hunt. None truly had witnessed Izuku the predator, all too afraid to see a monster hunting his prey. Horror movies had always emphasized the end of the process, and the macabre sight that is the reward. They could not fathom the beauty of the endeavor, but if they were there witnessing Midoriya they would have been blessed. His movements were flawless, precise, gracious. There was no waste of stamina or fluidity in everything he did. Nothing was useless and everything was useful. The moon was singing to him and he danced to the song. Because this is what a hunt is, a tango between predator and prey. Halfway through the journey, he stopped in his track as a strong scent reached his nostrils. It was a smell he knew oh so well, and it was coming straight from a back alley. His senses were quickly overwhelmed and slowly crept towards the source, following a path made from the shadows of the buildings. The scene he found made his inner mind vibrate with potent revulsion and terrifying lust filled his entire body. His eyes was witnessing 3 sidekicks heroes using their status to RP 2 young girls where no one could witness it. In this moment all he saw was red, and voice coming from the full moon became a chorus praising for violence and punishment. He screamed them to submit, he jumped and he slaughtered them all. Midoriya at this exact moment could not realize that he left only victims behind. All he could feel was himself growing and evolving. This faithful night, the beast had awakened, and it would paint the moon red. Fear is Midoriya, the Wendigo of the full moon 6-1 cleric beast from Bloodborne by 𝐒𝐻𝐼 on Twitter or X. The night of the full moon is still young, many preys awaiting their future demise from the eternal hunt. Purifying and ethereal, the pale song of the moon guide the chosen beast to his glorious feast. Villains and heroes committing atrocities, both fell and learned true agony in the Wendigo's claws and merciless appetite. For with each kills and bodies consumed in his new form, the voices became clearer and the lyrics were becoming a message. Izuku felt it in his core, the moon was calling to him and wanted to guide him towards his true purpose. As he continued killing, he was hearing about a city of eternal night for his wicked preys, where the hunt was eternal. He was longing for this place. The idea of hunting and ripping apart those disgusting for centuries without pause was making his blood boil with excitement. As Midoriya was finishing another RPST in a back alley, he felt a sudden change in the air. With the voices finally ending their chants, he was finally brought back to reality as his nose picked up a well-known scent in the air. His senses and mind coming back to him fully, Izuku looked at his surroundings and started panicking as he was processing the latest events. Izuku, what has happened of me? Has the moon finally talked clearly? They must not know they are not ready for it, and neither am I. Focalize on the big game first. Throwing himself back in pursuit of his main target, the Wendigo's mind was running 250 miles an hour as he was pondering the consequences of his crimes during the night. He knew what would happen if anybody were to find out about his murders. Although he did not felt remorse for doing them, he was fearing the loss of his liberty. Thankfully his deeds only left blood on the crime scenes. They were horrible and messy sights, but at least there was no wounds left behind to analyze. However, he will still have to prepare himself for the inevitable suspicions coming his way, as well as finding good explanations for his new form which he felt was going to stay. He shall have to manage the situation as best as he can. Thankfully his numerous years of living wild made him an expert in adaptation, especially when it comes to humans. He took a rapid detour as he saw a swimming pool nearby that he used to clean himself of the blood he got from killing those miserable rats. As he got out of the water and shook himself dry, he took a last glance at the blood he left inside the swimming pool before leaving. The automatic cleaning system should get rid of the red liquid before the morning, but the last gaze he gave to it made him remember the last lyrics of the moon. The ancient blood of the beast shall open the dreams to Izuku. What was the meaning of this? It did not took too long to track the scent of the portal back to where it came from, but what great surprise when he only felt that the smell of the hero killer was the only one coming out of the portal. For now Izuku did not know if this was good or bad news, but this interrogation did not matter now as long as they had nobody to interrogate. Midoriya took a deep breath and used his smell to identify the direction of his target, before letting out a loud and shrilling cry, informing the heroes that he was on Stain's track. Since Izuku could not really use communication devices, he and Manuel's team came up with a dozen cries all different from each other and having their assigned meaning. The Wendigo smiled fondly at the memories of doing so, since the process got quite hectic. They had the police and other heroes called 5 times on them because Izuku had to practice his cries. The 2 first times was because people thought he was going berserk and killing, the 3 other times was for complaints about the noises. Soon enough he heard the heroes calling back to him, and took it as the signal to start the hunt without them. He was a bit worried that they would misinterpret his cry, as his new form changed his voice quite a bit. Thankfully, his cries did not give too much alteration to his cries, so there should not be any problem of communication. With a far more recent track, Izuku could now properly gauge his opponent. Stain was clearly experienced, as the Wendigo could feel the speed and precision of each movements the hero killer made to navigate the city. When he was tracking a prey, Midoriya started the chase by mimicking the first movements of his opponents. Then he will move at his usual speed and use the lingering scent to see if mistakes were made along the way. After 8 minutes of tracking, Izuku was now absolutely sure of 3 facts. Stain was a long-seasoned hunter, the mind of his prey seems to have been recently filled with rage, and his next target was definitely 𝐒𝐻𝐽. Not losing time, he released his cry meant to inform the heroes of the last info that confirmed their doubts and picked up the pace. Minutes passed like seconds in Izuku's mind as the massive beast was getting closer and closer to the source of his concern. Soon enough, a new scent joined the first one, which he assumed belonged to 𝐒𝐻𝐽 as it was already tainted with BLD. He landed on nearby roof and saw his prey looming menacingly over his own, ready to strike in the hero's leg again. Since he could not move fast enough to intercept the blow, he let out an ear-chattering scream that made all nearby windows explode and made both Stain and 𝐒𝐻𝐽's ears bleed. With the hero killer momentarily stunned on his knees, Midoriya leaped above the street to join them and strike his prey with his massive left hand. Stain cried in agony as not only Izuku used all his strength into the blow, but also made sure to lacerate the hero killer across his chest with his giant claws. To make sure the fight was over and done with quickly, he also jumped down and picked up a car to throw it where Stain had landed to crush him. Once done, he got back to the injured hero who had lost consciousness. 10 minutes later, all the reinforcements arrived and were astonished to see the fight already over and Midoriya's new, even more terrifying form. Izuku briefly explained the situation to Manuel while medics took care of 𝐒𝐻𝐽, and a few sidekicks got down to retrieve Stain. Manuel, so they were not with him, I suppose we will see later if it's good or bad. Once back at my agency I'll get a call with Nezdu and 𝐒𝐻𝐽's parents. Sidekick 4, Sir. We have a problem. It's Stain, we can't find him. All students of Class 1A were currently talking to each other about their performance in the sport festival. Most of them were satisfied with their ranking and how it turned out. The only one visibly unhappy was Bakugo Katsuki, who was mad with Todoroki's final against him. It turns out that the son of Endeavor refused to use half of his powers. However, as they were waiting for their homework teacher to arrive, their president Momo Yaoyorozu realized that someone else than Midoriya was missing. After a few minutes, Aizawa eventually arrived and activated his quirk to get everyone silent. He overlooked each of his students with an unimpressed look, until his gaze ended on Ida's empty desk. He shook his head in disapproval in response to the sight, but for those who had started to learn how to read their teacher, they saw a glint of concern in his eyes. Aizawa, all right you lots. With the sport festival now behind us, your first internship is starting in a few days. As you already know, your performances and scores have opened or closed many hero agencies' doors for your internship. Here are the results. Eraserhead proceed to click on a remote to activate a projector. The number of propositions for each one of them was on full display on the class's board, within highlights, personal interest, made by a top 10 pro hero. The class erupted in cries of joy and surprise as the number of possibilities for top 10 students and specifically top 3 was outstanding. Kirishima, Yukakubro. You got 1654 props and API from Mirko. That's so manly. 1 Denki. Of course, Todoroki got API from his old man but 1879 props, that's insane. Uraraka. Tokoyami, you have a P-Night from Hawks, that is so cool. Tsuyu. Yep, and 987 props is not too shabby either. Karo, their teacher, watched the chaos unfold before his eyes with a terrible envy to leave. He was about to call out the noise when he saw Momo Yaoyorozu, the class president, looking back and forth between the rest of her classmates and the still empty desk of one vice president. Well, it seems that at least one of them realized at the end. Izawa, silence. Is it impossible for this class to get new information without hell breaking loose? Mina, sorry sensei. Izawa, I'm not asking you to be sorry. I'm asking you to change. Now Yaoyorozu, I believe you had a question for me, right? Momo, yes, actually I have, Izawa sensei. Where is Tenya Ida? In reaction to this question, everyone else looked at Ida's desk to realize that he was indeed not present with them. They all started whispering about why. Their classmate was not there, before Izawa quickly shut them up with a stare. Izawa, finally, someone here acknowledge it. During your internship, you all better be more aware about your partners on the field. To answer your question, Miss Yaoyorozu, Tenya Ida is currently at the central hospital near Hosu, visiting his older brother. Zero, Ingenium. And isn't Hosu where Midoriya is posted? Jiro, did something bad happen? Izawa, the answer to all of these questions is yes, Bakugo, ba. Who cares about what happened to Four Eyes' brother or where the extra is? Kirishima, hey. Don't be insensitive, Bakubro, that is not manly at all. Bakugo, shut up as tie hair. Izawa, enough, you two. Ingenium's team and himself were working in together with manual agency to track down and arrest the hero killer Stain. And yes, this is in Hosu with the help of Midoriya. Bakugo, you mean that while we were doing the festival this giant ****** was tracking down and fighting real villains? Izawa, Bakugo, stop with your childish tantrums right now. I'm not in the mood to deal with them. This is my first and last warning. Bakugo, 𝐻𝐸𝐽𝐿, Tokoyami, so what darkness has fall on Tenya's older brother? Izawa, Ingenium got a rundown with Stain. It did not go well. Tenya Ida was walking back and forth in one of Hosu's General Hospital many waiting rooms. The usual rigid but righteous vice president of Class 1A was wearing a cold and dark expression on his face, and a mixture of rage and fear was radiating from him as he was there, walking back and forth, waiting for an authorization to visit his brother. The only informations he got before getting here were from his parents at the phone. It was not much considering that his mother had a hard time explaining between her sobs. What he got from her was, Tensei is badly injured, fight with Stain, the Emerald Wendigo and Hosu General Hospital. Needless to say, he was on they as soon he got eliminated from the festival. After almost an hour of waiting, Kenji Tsuragami, the chief of police, exited Tensei's hospital room and walked to him. He rapidly presented himself and why he was here, then told Ida that he was clear to go see his older brother. In fact, it seemed that Tensei already knew he was here. Once Kenji warned him to not jump at his brother, he let him go. Ida, Tensei. Mother told me, Tensei. Tenya, it's been a while. Sorry to have our meeting with me in such a poor state, but that is just what being a pro-hero is. Ida, brother, I was so worried for you. When Mother told me Stain badly injured you, I was on my way as soon as I could. How bad is it? Are you okay? You're not gonna die, right? Tensei, whoa, calm down, little brother. Calm down. There, take a deep breath. Ida, so are why, I was just Tensei, don't worry, it's okay now to answer your questions. I will need a week of rest before even thinking going back to work. So, do not worry, I'm not gonna die. In fact, I can consider myself really lucky with this one. If it wasn't for Midoriya, Stain would have ended my whole career with the stab he was about to give me. Ida, me Midoriya is the one who saved you. Tensei, pretty ironic, is it not? The nightmarish beast who comes to save the brave knight in shining armor. Ida, he is not that monstrous, I see it more and more, now Tensei. He will be glad to hear that. Although you may change your mind about the monstrous part when you'll see his new form of his Ida. His new what now? Tensei, don't worry about that for now. First, let's take some time together so I can give you a better picture of the story. As for any possible question you may have for your big bad classmate, well, you can ask him directly afterward. He is on the rooftop of the hospital. The night had just fallen and it was soon time Ida to finally leave his brother and the hospital. However, he had one final matter to take care of before going back home. one final person to meet and most importantly, thanks to save his Oni-chan's career. It took some time for him to find the access to the hospital's roof, as he had to ask the way a few times. When he finally arrived to the door leading to the very top of the building, he felt a mixture of anticipation and curiosity. He, like everyone else, had doubts and caution towards the terrible beast that was Midoriya. However, the act of rescue towards his elder brother and role model made all of them wither away. Of course, there was the curiosity about this new form. When he opened the door, he was truly left without voice by the sight that greeted him. At the edge of the roof in far front of the door he came in, stood the new figure of his bestial classmate, towering, appealing yet terrifying, standing tall before an enormous full moon that bathed him in ethereal light. He was an angel of nightmare. "Izuku, you are finally here. I was expecting you." Ida was taken out of his trance by the Wendigo's new deeper voice directed towards him. His friend had not turned around to face, nor did he show any sign that he had heard him. Izuku seemed to have his gaze directed towards the astral body above them. Maybe if he wasn't so taken aback, he could have realized that the moon's size was not normal. "Ida, how did you know?" "Izuku, your scent is strong and heavied with raging emotions, of course." How could he forget about Midoriya's incredible sense of smell? It was what saved their class of a terrible encounter in the USJ after all, and it certainly saved Izuku's own life many times over. He slowly but surely joined his bestial camarade at the edge of the roof. He took a few minutes to look at the majestic full moon before posing his hand on his classmate's arm, making the Wendigo look down at him at last. "Ida, thank you for saving Tensei's Kara. I will never forget that." Izuku looks back at the moon. "Your thanks are premature. The prey has managed to escape. There can be no celebrations yet, Ida. Maybe, but saving my brother is something you did, not something you will have to do." Midoriya hummed in understanding before silence quickly fell back on them. What Ida may not know was that the cold and calm exterior he was showing did not fool his bestial friend one bit. Izuku was capable of smelling the emotions of others, and the younger Ida's scent was loaded with great fury towards Stain. The Wendigo looked back at him. "Izuku, your hatred towards our prey is palpable. You seek revenge, don't you?" Tenya tensed slightly as he heard those words. He wanted to deny that it was true, but he knew that Midoriya could read him like a book with his sense of smell. He answered by simply redirecting his gaze towards the floor and clenching his fists. He prepared himself for his friend scolding him, but he got something very different. "Izuku, do you wish to become a hunter and to join me in the track?" "Ida, you would let me." "Izuku, when the internship will come, choose Manuel's agency. I will train you." Ida smiles. "Thank you." It was 2 days now since Tenya had his discussion with Midoriya. He was very motivated to start his internship and because of it, was more relaxed. Of course, his choice of agency did not go unnoticed by neither Aizawa or a few of his other classmates, and both confronted him about it. He simply told them half of the truth by saying that Izuku had proposed to train him and thought he was a very good teacher to train his quirk. Only Aizawa felt that there was something else behind this simple reason, but he could not say that Ida was incorrect. Midoriya was in fact a very good choice to train Tenya, as his impressive mobility and agility was a great counter to the boy's speed quirk. He cited as he had no good enough reason to refuse Ida's choice and simply informed Nezu of the ordeal, hoping that his giant, #1 problem child could prevent the other boy from doing anything stupid. Soon enough, all of Class 1A said goodbye to their homeroom teacher and to each other, before taking their respective subway towards their selected hero agency for internship. After a few hours, Ida arrived to Manuel's agency and was greeted by the pro in question. He was given a quick briefing of how things would go in the internship. "Manuel, normally after you settled down and got a tour of the agency, you would directly be thrown into the terrible paperwork hell. But you're quite the lucky one. Our fearless Wendigo resident is already waiting for you on Training Ground Alpha. So get yourself changed into your hero costume." "Ida, thank you very much, sir. I promise that I will not disappoint. Why is everyone looking at me with pity?" "Manuel, my boy. That is because you're not the only here who got trained by Midoriya here. Good luck." 30 minutes later. "Izuku, I see that you have arrived. Are you ready to go through a hunter's training?" "Ida, now more than ever." "Izuku, Very well, me and our prey may differ in size, but our fighting styles are very similar to each other. Stealthy, precise, quick yet efficient. Stay focus on my movements. Tenya nodded in approval before both got into fighting position. Ida took a classic boxing posture while Midoriya got on all four, getting as low as possible to spread his size horizontally to minimize his massive size and gain maximum maneuverability. Tenya was the one who made the first move by activating his quirk, rushing straight to Izuku. Midoriya in response teared out a chunk of the ground, crushed it into pebbles. Once his opponent was close enough, he thrown himself to the side and proceeded to throw the sharp small rocks at Ida with great force. This resulted in a shotgun-like blast of projectiles that hit Tenya dead center. He could not dodge nor protect himself as he was in the process to stop his momentum so he could change direction. This sent the boy crashing on the ground a few meters/feet away. It took him a few seconds to get back on his feet, leaving him barely enough time to dodge the Wendigo who came at full speed, trying to ram him with his giant antlers. Once the attack failed, Midoriya looked up and kept forward. Rather than trying to stop his momentum to change direction, he continued and then jumped at the wall, clawing himself to it. He looked back to see his adversary, seeing him running towards training materials that could serve as weapons. He used the wall to propulse himself towards his target and used his bigger left hand to slam where his classmate would stand. Ida saw him coming and used his reciprocal burst to jump towards the material and dodging Izuku's slam. Jumping revealed to be a good idea as Midoriya's slam made a powerful shockwave. Tenya grabbed a metal bar to use it as a spear and charged straight at Izuku. The Wendigo, seeing that, used his still half-buried hand to tear out a big chunk of the floor to send it at his opponent. This time, Ida did not try to change direction and slide under the boulder coming at him. Once close enough, Midoriya swiped away Tenya's weapon before jumping back of. Izuku, very well done Tenya. Ida smiles. Izuku, crouch down, but you still have to land a hit on me. 2 days have passed since Tenya Ida has joined Manuel's team and started training under Izuku. Midoriya. He learned how to use walls to evolve his speed vertically but most importantly, to not fight against his momentum when he needs to completely change direction. Instead, he was taught to use his surroundings to progressively redirect it, keeping him mobile and to save energy and time. Izuku, when speed is your greatest strength, you must capitalize on it constantly. Always stay in movement. Give your prey no rest. A fight is but a deadly, improvised waltz. If you dictate the tempo, impose the rhythm, force your prey to only react, then only chance, an iron mind and great stamina will keep your prey from defeat. Ida quickly understood the looks of pity he received from the other heroes when they learned that the Wendigo would be his teacher. Midoriya was a brutally efficient mentor, one who had to learn everything himself through tears and BLD. Where all of them had a peaceful and ignorant childhood, Izuku had to fight and survive through his curse. And it shone through his training and lessons. When Tenya was training under him, it was always outside, using the city of Hosu as their training grounds. Midoriya gave him the necessary time to recover when he needed to, but his training was never on pause. Izuku would make sure that Ida was always vigilant and wary of his surroundings. When they were training in parkour, Midoriya would periodically hide or loose Ida to see how his apprentice would proceed. When they were scooting the city, Izuku would surprise attack him to make sure Tenya had not a tunnel vision. When Ida was recovering his stamina, the Wendigo would ask him what he could deduce from the surrounding sounds. Izuku, a hunter, is always hunting his prey in the heart of the night, when the monsters are active. Death waits for the slightest lapse of concentration. This last quote seemed to deeply resonate into Ida's consciousness, especially now as they were in the city at night's first hours, with Manuel and all of his team. All heroes posted in Hosu were currently mobilized to track down Stain while keeping an eye out for any activities from the League of Villains. They had decided to separate their team in groups of 4, their leading one being composed of Manuel, his best sidekick, Tenya, and Izuku, the last one being at the front to sniff out any danger or targets. They kept going at the usual pace of their training, Midoriya still making sure that Ida did not show any sign of losing concentration. They had go on like this for almost an hour before the Wendigo suddenly stopped in his track, getting at his full high and started to sniff the air far more erratically. Manuel, what is it? You got something. Izuku, I have the scent of his portals. The League is here, but there is something else. Manuel, gets his talkie-walkie attention to all unites. This is Moonlight Hunter. The beast has detected the LOV. Gets everyone on high alert. They may bringing the big guns. Over. From what his nose could gather, the portals of Kurogiri have only brought him and Shigaraki in Hosu. But for unknown reason they still active, with yet nothing more coming out of them. It took a few minutes, but soon 5 instances of a certain scent emerged from those portals. He recognized from the USJ the scent of a mindless and powerful beast bent only on destruction. What was very bad, however, was that not only there was 5 of them, but 2 were clearly high in the sky. Ida, what did you smell, Midoriya? What are they bringing with them? Izuku, those mindless beasts, 5 of them, with 2 clearly flying manual, ****T. Everyone, they have 5 nomus. I repeat, they have 5 nomus with them. 2 apparently airborne, coming into the city. Starting evacuating protocols now. Ida, 5 nomus. Soon enough cries and sounds of destructions had replaced the overall silence of Hosu. Their lines of communication started to fill with orders given left and right and reports of each group current situations. Most of the heroes and police officers were starting to alarm and evacuate all civilians in the area, while the heavy hitters were gathering to fight back. Endeavor, Moonlight Hunter. This is Raging Inferno. We are moving in to engage those freaks. Over. Manual, Roger. Okay, Midoriya, go join Endeavor and his team in the fight. You are clearly not suited to evacuate civilians. Hitachi, you are going with him as you are not better suited than him for this. Ida, you are coming with me to help evacuating the area. Manual, I'm keeping an eye on you, *****Anji monster. Midoriya's answer to this was simply to grab the sidekick with his bigger hand before going in the direction of the fight in full speed. Once he got at the top of the nearest building, making sure to hold the other full more tight than needed to make him understand that he had enough of his behaviors, he looked back at Tenya. When both gazed at each other, Izuku signaled Ida to remember his distress beacon if he was to encounter Stain alone and decided to engage. His pupil nodded to him under the suspicious gaze of Manuel, who, even with his attention on his talkie-walkie, still saw this subtle exchange. For now he decided to let it slide, but now he knew that keeping an eye on his intern was more important than ever. When he got every information he needed, he pulled Tenya's attention back to him and signaled that it was time to move. Ida did not protested, but Manuel could see his hard gaze at darkness behind his intern's eyes. Eraserhead told him about his suspicion of why the little brother of Ingenium took internship under him. And it seems that unfortunately, Midoriya has decided to encourage his intern into seeking vengeance. Total chaos was reigning over the city as the Emerald Wendigo was going through the Hosu, jumping from roofs to roofs. He kept the sidekick of Manuel in his hand all the way, even though the little man finally got the message to not anger him anymore. This took a lot on Midoriya's mental strength, as this man's behavior and his endless hunger were making the voices coming back to his head. To each glance he took at his surroundings to make sure they would not be surprised attacked by the flying Nomus. His vision would briefly flash and the city landscapes would be replaced by visions of a grim yet magnificent Gothic city under an endless full moon night. The voices, now completely comprehensible, chanted about a dream of hunters where the wicked souls would become beasts to be hunted down for eternity. When they finally arrived at their destination, he put down the sidekick and looked over the number 2 hero, his son and a few other pros, fighting against the 3 grounded monsters. The last words of the voices were told to him as he observed the ongoing battle, words that would guide him from here on out. Seek the old BLD, and become the dream's god. As the voices recede back, he saw that one of the Nomus managed to circle around in the back of the Todoroki, ready to take the pro-hero by surprise. He had hoped to enter the scene without directly interfering with the fight to not appear hostile to both, since none of the 2 had seen his new form before. Alas, it was not to be this way. Shoto, father, behind you, watch out. Endeavor, teach too late, as the Nomu had launched himself on the number 2 hero and was now pinning him to the ground. With both his arms locked over his head, he ignited himself on fire to force the monster to get out of him, but the mindless flesh construct did not care and both would die here without outside intervention. Before Shoto finally concluded that he couldn't let his father die here despite how much he wished to, the Nomu was tackled all the way from over Enji's body to the nearest building's wall. All heroes present had their eyes widen as they say the massive new form of the Wendigo briefly locked with the Nomu, before reaping both of its arms and proceeded to slam the mindless beast on the ground. Some heroes had to look away or even emptied their stomach, as Midoriya proceeded to eat out the Nomu's head, before lifting it in the air and simply tearing the beast in two. The Wendigo cried out victoriously before throwing the body to Endeavor's feet, signaling him to burn down the remains of the creature. "Endeavor, you're done for wait, you're that monster in Manuel's team, the Wendigo. You're also in my son's class if I remember correctly." Izuku only nodded in response as he ripped out a chunk of asphalt and throwing it at another Nomu who was about to punch another hero who was still recovering from his brutal display. This put everyone back into the fight as Midoriya proceeded to ram with his antlers the third one who had just been partially frozen by Shoto Todoroki. The boy watched in morbid awe at the new form of his bestial classmate, who he just realized the identity. Midoriya had completely impaling the still frozen Nomu, making multiple chunks of his body break apart. The beast, who was still very much alive despite losing 42% of his body mass, grabbed the base of the Wendigo's antlers to tear them apart. Rendered furious by the pain caused, Izuku tried to pry the Nomu off of himself by trashing his head around and even headbutting nearby walls and the floor. He finally managed to throw off the Nomu at the cost of his left antler being broken in half. Midoriya screeched in pain as his bright red blood started to pour out of his wound. "Shoto, Midoriya." Shoto was too slow to completely stop the Nomu who had already regenerated. He used his power to trap the meat puppet into a glacier, but it still managed to land a solid punch in Izuku's plexus, sending him to crash through the wall of a nearby building. This first and second floor broke and crumbled on Midoriya who had no time to recover or dodge. A cruel silence took over the scene for a few seconds before Shoto had to concentrate back on the Nomu who had just broken free of his ice prison. Izuku was in a very bad situation. His blood was still gushing out of his broken antler and a broken pillar had pierced through his stomach. As he desperately tried to push off the pieces of cement and steel rebar and break the pillar out of his body, he heard the voices coming back to him in full force, as he felt something strange with his blood. From the corner of his eye and with his limited range of vision, he could see and feel his blood crawling back to him and flowing down his skin. It was forming some kind of protection layer over his fur and skin. He could tell that there was more than this. His blood felt like some kind of energetic fuel, wanting to be set ablaze. It is then that the ominous song begin. Bestial blood, blessing of old gods, bestial blood, lighting the path ahead, bestial blood, weapon against all odds, bestial blood, painting the night sky red, bestial blood, brightest of fire, bestial blood. It bring the prey terror. The situation was getting dire outside. 3 of the 7 lesser pro heroes who were with the Todoroki have been killed by the still rampaging Nomu, one taking most of Endeavor's attention while the other remaining pros were trying to assist the number 2 son. As 2 new pros were killed and one of the brainless living weapon was cornering the younger Todoroki, the battlefield was shaken by a big explosion coming from where the Wendigo was send caching. Once the projectiles of the explosion were all dodged, all looked towards the source of the event only to have their eyes widen in surprise and fear. What they saw was a cloud of dust brightened from behind by a raging red light. Slowly walking from the fog was Izuku Midoriya, ignited in blood red flames. 5 recognizing Midoriya as the main menace beside Endeavor, the Nomu forget Shoto Todoroki to charge him instead. This resulted in Izuku slamming it down, not only breaking most of its body but also igniting the mindless puppet in fire. Midoriya proceeded to bite down on the Nomu's head, filling it with magma-like blood which completely melted it. A few seconds later, Endeavor was finished with their last Nomu. There were numerous causalities, but the preys were slaughtered. Iida was doing a good job helping Manuel evacuating civilians, but the latest could not miss how his intern was not completely focused on his task. Since the little exchange he saw between him and Midoriya, he was sending discreet glances to the hero student, making sure he would not try to eclipse himself. By doing so he could see that Tenya was looking for something, or rather someone. This was very stressful for him as he still had to lead a team. Because of this, when the cry of a distressed hero was heard, coming from far away and in the opposite direction of the conflict, he could not do everything at the same time. He was still giving orders to his sidekicks while keeping an eye on Iida, and now he was receiving a call from Endeavor to be updated on the grounded Nomus. Once the number 2 hero told him that the Nomus on the ground were now taken care of and that they were coming back to them, he quickly realized in horror that his intern was gone. He asked all of his sidekicks in panic if anyone knew where Tenya was, and all answered that they had no idea. He would have gotten a cardiac arrest here and there if in the distance he did not see the Wendigo going towards seemingly where Iida went. Manual, I'm already getting too old for this as ***. Wait, did I just see Midoriya on fires? He and his team could not go fetch them as they still had to evacuate the citizens. Instead he took his talkie to inform Endeavor about the situation and what was going to happen. Enji, of course, was not really happy to learn this and told him that he and his son were on their way to take down the hero killer. From the following cries that Manuel heard on the other side, it seems that his son heard everything and was already on his way. Manuel, those kids are going to be the end of us? It did not took long for Tenya to reach the location of his desired prey, as Midoriya would call it. During the evacuation process while he was assisting Manuel, he was eagerly waiting for any signs of Stain's activity nearby. Of course he was aware of all the quick and subtle glares Manuel was giving him. Doing what he was about to do was against the rules and illegal after all, and he knew it better than anyone else. But he could just not resist the temptation, especially since he would not have another chance. Besides, Izuku told him that because of his bestial and predatory nature, he could not really blame nor stop him when it came to his wish to hunt down the hero killer. In fact, instead of reporting him, he trained Iida to be a hunter and gave him a way to request his aid when the confrontation would come. He knew he shouldn't, every part of his veins screamed at him to stop immediately. But every fiber of his body was craving for revanche, and with all his time passed with Midoriya as his mentor, he could no longer deny the great appeal and the thrill of the hunt. As he landed on the roof above his target, having a clear view of Stain looming over the pro-hero Natine, Iida steadied himself as all of Izuku's lessons come rushing to his mind. One as Stain looked over Manuel sitting on the ground and against a wall, bloodied and unable to move, he ready himself to finish this fake hero before he feels at the last second a rush of air from behind. He barely has enough time to lower his arm and duck a bit, only to see an armored feat who would have kicked his katana out of his possession. This allowed him to see his opponent propelling himself back towards him from the wall, ready to give him a high kick. The hero killer expertly dodged on the side as late as possible, ready to cut in half his opponent right there. What he did not expect, however, was that not only did the hero student, as he could determine now that he had a bit of time to analyze his opponent, swept away his blade with one of his hand, but also kept going and was bouncing off walls to redirect himself and to keep his momentum going. He had expected the newcomer to stop as fast as he could and turned around. This made his throwing knives completely miss their target. He could tell this was going to be an annoying fight. God, does he hate speedsters? This, indeed, turned into an annoying game of keeping the kid on sight and trying to determine when and from where he would decide to strike. He blocked most of the teen's strikes and had been close to stop the kid a few times, but it only made the boy more evasive and less direct in his attacks, while all of his throwing knives became a 50-50 option. Fortunately for Stain, Tenya was still clearly lacking experience, and it was already showing. As a veteran on the battlefield, he knew how to analyze his opponents and recognize patterns, and the more time passed, the more the kid became predictable. Besides, if it was to turn into a battle of attrition, he would obviously win. Speedsters are not known displaying incredible endurance. Only All Might excelled in all fields of combat, and this boy was clearly not All Might. It took 10 minutes of trial and error, but the opportunity finally came. He knew where the kid was going next, and this is where his throwing knives would finally become useful again. With a precise throw, he forced Iida to stop running and slide instead, greatly decreasing his speed and mobility. With a dash, he was on Tenya when he jumped back on his feet, allowing him to deliver a powerful kick to the hero student's side. This sent Iida flying towards the nearest wall, and the pain prevented him to prevent himself from crashing into it. He still had enough strength and resilience to dodge Stain's swipe with his katana, but now he had lost all of his momentum and the constant running drained him of most of his energy. Midoriya told him that he had to end those kind of fights quickly for he was doomed in battles of attrition, but he was so focused on getting his revenge that he made another great mistake that the Wendigo warned him about: underestimating your opponent. Stain, you were quite annoying kid. But I have to commend your persistence and courage. You have the drive of a true hero. Turns around, I will let you live for that. Tenya, how do you think you are to say who is a true hero and a false one? My big brother Ingenium was the truest hero I have ever known. And I'm here to make you pay for what you did to him. Stain stops and look back at Tenya. Looks like I was wrong. You are doing this only because of a selfish longing, not caring about all the innocent civilians out there needing your help. It seems like you will die alone this night. You should have come with another. Tenya discreetly smiles as he look up behind Stain, who said I didn't. Stain thought that it was a bluff at first. The kid knew he was pretty much done for and his only option was to try getting away. Still hasn't managed to get his quirk working on him as this fake was really slippery, but now without his precious full speed going it would be pretty easy. That was his thoughts, until he felt it behind him. This presence was something he would never forget, the one belonging to something out of a nightmare, the one that wrecked him in front of another fake a few days prior. He had known about the Emerald Wendigo not long after its killing started. A monster of South American folklore with enormous proportions, yet silent and stealthy as a shadow. Bestial in form and will, yet deceptively intelligent and adaptive. One at fist, the hero killer like any other hated the beast, saying as nothing more than any other serial killers that needed to be put down, and he would have loved to be the one who would do it. But then something unexpected happened, something no one could possibly have foreseen. One of his victims changed his heart. After that, the Emerald Wendigo become villains and false heroes' worst nightmare, the demon that would come to claim their wicked souls. Stain was at a loss for words when the change happened. Parts of Mustafa had become clean of crimes and corruption after the Wendigo had visited them, even after the beast had left. When Stain got there himself to understand how it was possible, and of course finish cleaning behind, he looked in the eyes of a few heroes who he knew were fake. What he saw in them was the fear of God and hell. Then came the Wendigo's arrest by All Might himself, the official announcement of a villain rehab program where he would be the first one, and a speech of the creature now officially known as Izuku Midoriya in UA who got leaked and published online. In the end, the hero killer realized that he had just found someone he was kindred spirit with. Two hunters out in the night to slay the real monsters of this earth. He was looking forward to their inevitable meeting. Unfortunately, it seemed that their first encounter would allow any types of discussion between them, since the Wendigo was clearly in a state of frenzy that day. Stain deduced that came formed the beast's new form. He knew it was new from the shocked faces of the hero he barely managed to see as he was sent flying against a wall at neck-breaking speed. He had barely survived that day, and know it was time to have the discussion he wished for with him. As the giant presence of the beast made itself known behind him with ground-shaking force and the red light of a raging inferno, he turned around to meet the gaze of a predator looming over him. This time the eyes he saw were not of savage monster, but of a powerful and deadly yet very intelligent hunter. Just like him. Stain. We meet again, Emerald Wendigo. I know about you, hunter and living nightmare of the sinners. I've been looking forward to this second encounter between us. Instantly the hero killer sprinted towards Midoriya going for an S-stock. His attempt was answered by Izuku using his less massive claw to strike the weapon, an upward, vertical strike making Stain losing his sword by the sheer force of the blow. The Wendigo followed by hammering down his ignited more massive arm where the hero killer was standing, who managed to dodge but got a part of his clothes lit on fire. One Stain quickly extinguished himself before sending a volley of throwing knives at Midoriya so he could jump and retrieve his katana. Izuku dodged the knives by backflipping high enough to catch the edge of the building behind while reaping a chunk of concrete. As he saw the hero killer leap in the air to get his main weapon, Midoriya jumped towards where Stain's weapon was to strike the hero killer with his boulder. Seeing this as he retrieved his katana, Stain knew that blocking the blow of striking back would probably ended with his main blade shattered to pieces. Instead he turned back and leaned towards the ground to maybe kick himself away from the boulder. It half worked, as he had to grit his teeth from one of his ankle being broken by the force. Both landed a few seconds after each other. First was Stain, who landed foot first half on the ground and half on the wall. Though he managed to reduce a bit of the shock with his left leg on the wall, his broken ankle reaching the ground with great force made him collapse on the ground in pain. Midoriya landed soon after, almost completely destroying the roof they were on, creating spiderweb-like cracks and spreading his magma like BLD all around. Izuku lowered himself on the ground, getting on all fours as he watched 𝐎𝐸𝐲 Killer trying to get back up. Izuku, that's make two of us 𝐎𝐸𝐲 Killer, however, for being hunters and both finding purpose in the hunt. One of us is the other's prey. Stain. So they send you here for me. Why would you? We're both doing the same thing. At the end, Izuku dashed towards Tenya, who had collapsed and lost consciousness since then. Saying that, Stain tried to stop the Wendigo by throwing a few knives at him. But Midoriya swept them away with his antlers before cradling the hero student in his arms and jumped on another roof high above to get him in safety. Once done, he turned around to look at Stain barely standing on his feet. Izuku, some of your praise did not deserve to be slaughtered. Ingenium's gains through marketing were mostly for charity. As for this young one, he is no hero, yet merely a cub still learning the world around him. He is prone to moral mistakes and should be given the chance to grow. Stain. This rotted system will transform him into selfish monster. He should die while he still have enough humanity left inside him. Izuku. Not if I finish his training. He has just started to taste the hunt under my guidance, and he will not be the last. 3. Midoriya ended his speech and jumped down where he had landed previously, at the very center of the cracks he left behind, with full intent to shatter the roof in pieces and bring down the 𝐎𝐸𝐲 Killer with him. Stain, understanding what was about to happen, tried to jump away, only to have to block multiple shards of sharp rocks sent at him by Midoriya in a shotgun-like blast. Before he could get away, Izuku landed on the floor with such force and speed that he went right through it. Both fell down as the whole building was collapsing on itself. Because of his size and weight, Midoriya landed first at the very bottom. Thankfully, the building had already been evacuated, so there was no casualties or outside victims because of the destruction. Once Stains arrived, not able to do anything with all the pain, Izuku grabbed the 𝐎𝐸𝐲 Killer in midair and slammed him unconscious against a concrete wall still half standing. The Wendigo kneeled down in exhaustion as heard a familiar voice coming from above. Shoto, Midoriya, I'm here. The battle was over for now. The defeat of the 𝐎𝐸𝐲 Killer Stain marked the end of the nightmare for Hosu. When Midoriya had emerged from the ruins of the building with his prey secured, the rest of Endeavor's team had arrived shortly after to end the fight if needed. The number 2 hero arrived a bit late as he was chasing the last flying Nomu left, whose last mistake was to try abducting Shoto Todoroki right in front of Izuku. Its bloodied and burnt corpse signaled the end of the hunt. Many things were waiting to be said about this specific incident, as Manuel had a good idea of how all of this came to be. He always had his suspicions about Iida thanks to Aizawa's warnings, but he did not expect Midoriya to not only let Tenya go away with his idiotic revenge crusade but also indirectly preparing him for the fight with Stain. He still had mixed feelings about that. Both of them were confronted about the event 2 or 3 days after they took place, which is the time it took to clean the city up, list all damage and causalities, and for both the police forces, UA and HPSC, to review what was now publicly known as the Hosu incident. While Tenya was obviously receiving a visit and lecture from the chief of police forces in his hospital room, Izuku received an unexpected convocation in the HPSC headquarters. The Emerald Wendigo was confused as to how and why his actions had apparently warranted the commission's attention like that, but a message from Nezu not long after he received the news made it clear that they had their eye on him for a long time. From what Nezu told him, the HPSC were looking for individuals like him who had his peculiar set of skills for a new project they had, something about a new office. One that screamed, secretly not legal. So, it was with great wariness that the hulking beast walked inside the main building of the HPSC. However, the many worried looks he got from the staff all around him during his trip inside the building made it pretty clear that he shouldn't worry too much. It was not some kind of trap, or he would not see or smell so much fear coming from the people in this place. He was to a director office, one that from the look was belonging to a head of the commission. He was welcomed by none other than Ms. President and the acting president 𝐒𝐻𝐽𝐫, both with two pro-heroes famously known to work closely with the commission, Hawks and Lady Nagant. This event and convocation would also have been far more tense if it wasn't for the fact that the HPSC headquarters was not really made for someone of his massive size, which made his SERT to the office quite the challenge. This was to the delight of Hawks and the annoyance of Madame President. Ms. President, greetings Midoriya Izuku, or Emerald Wendigo as you prefer. We are very happy that you have accepted coming here. First of all, allow me to show our gratitude and amazement towards the aid and skills you have provided to take down the hero killer. This man was a thorn in our side for quite some times. Izuku, I do not share as much delight as you. It is always saddening when a hunter has to hunt one of his brethren even when fate put them on opposite sides. Ms. President. Agreed. For how much of a pain Stain was, we could certainly not deny his skill and potential. However, I think that we could rectify this with your help. Izuku, Nedzu told me that you are looking for individuals like me Yakumer, so, the rat told you Yes, it's true, because we simply think that the likes of you, hunters, are simply wasting their potential either by becoming criminals or trying to become heroes. This is what Nedzu wants to make you know. A hero. Izuku, yes, this is what he know, what they hope to achieve Hawks. Even if it's against your most primal instincts, am I right? Izuku looks at him in the eyes. Yes, to Yakumaru. We have followed your development and story from the beginning. Midoriya. Everyone here know that you are simply not made to be a good-looking hero that saves the day and brings smiles to the populace. You could take the underground hero route, of course, Ms. President, but it would be a waste of your incredible potential. There is another job for it to be better used, a kind of job that only us can provide. Izuku narrows his eyes. What do you mean? Lady Nagant, you have tasted human blood and flesh since Bnha. You have experienced taking lives away the moment you were born. You are a born killer who have been brought in this world to hunt down and slaughter scumbags. The three of us are alike in that regard. However, you never needed anyone to become MSTR at it. Ms. President, Nedzu has done a really good job at fully bringing out your human side. I will not deny him that. Teaching you how to write and how to talk, giving you insights on how society work. But even for that he cannot take full credits for this achievement. He must have tell you that already. Hawks, the little mouse is great at making heroes, but seriously, what are still doing in UA? I have seen you on the field kicking, but far better than many pros I know. Some are even well-seasoned fighter and long-time heroes. Don't you think that you are just wasting your time in this school? Izuku, the call of the hunt, is indeed strong and everlasting, but I have matured enough to keep a clean mind at all times. The songs of the moon may call me for unending bloodshed, but a hunter shall never fall to the savagery of his praise. Ms. President. This is why we think that you are perfect for our new project. While the heroic system and society present life in prison as the harshest and morally best punishment for the worst that humanity has to offer, it is simply an ethical facade. We all know here that in reality, it is just a big waste of money, resources and time. 3 Lady Nagant, and that for certain of those it is a luxury they absolutely not deserve. Izuku, humans can become beasts and beasts must be slayed. This is a hunter's job. Yakumaru. For a long time, we wish to create a special branch of our commission to deal with this problematic. But of course, we cannot publicly break laws, and all nations worldwide agreed to forever ban death penalty. 5 Ms. President, but you have changed things. Midoriya. The reactions to your old change of heart and becoming a villain killer, or to your speech at UA after it was leaked on the internet showed us that this project was closer at hand than we thought. Yakumaru, so Izuku. Midoriya. Allow us to present you our brand new project. One we hope you would become the front figure and symbol, as you have been its main inspiration, the Hunting Bureau for Heroic Safety. 5 It was with a conflicted mind that the Emerald Wendigo got out of the HPSC main building. Their proposition was very tempting, a bit too much as told by his instincts and teachings with Nedu. He had a good idea of what the commission was trying to do, and he warned them that he was not some kind of hunting dog to put leash on. Of course, they refuted that they were saying him like that and promised him that he would basically be the head of this new bureau. However, Midoriya was no fool, or he would have died a very long time ago. Any kind of position with power in this DMN commission would still make you a tool to be used for higher-ups, most importantly the government. He could not outright refuse their proposition, for they still had a Damocles sword over his head with his past deeds, but for now he only has to buy time so he can accomplish his real destiny. For now he simply told them that he needed some time to think over their benevolent traps, as he called it, but once he has found the old BLD and ascended to the dream, he will be far beyond their reach. He know it, deep in his soul and through the songs of the moon. He has been chosen for greatness, something far beyond mortal understanding. Izuku, I was born by the bulb, will be made by the BLD, I will make a hunt, everlasting, forever blessed by the night of a full moon. The old BLD had become his new obsession since that fateful night in Hosu City. Desperately he tried to decipher and understand the numerous messages given to him by the voices from beyond the veil, but alas, alone he was limited and his options seemed to be less and less since few would take his rambling about it. Holy BLD seriously. Fortunately, that would change today. Once he had briefly visited his new-found pupil in Bnha X at the hospital, got reprimanded by both Manuel and Aizawa for not trying to stop Bnha from going in his little crusade, and dealing with a brief reunion with his class who had come to visit Ida, he was reminded by the chief of police about something he had forgotten. The cults in his name, or made for him. Sir Tsuragami had come to him to have a private talk, as he was explaining to both pro-heroes that no one could have stopped Bnha from going out to get his revanche. They could not keep an eye on the young hero student 24H/7 for a whole week. He had smelled the boy's hatred and determination for his quest and would have departed unnoticed the moment he could. Izuku, the only viable way to prevent a disaster was to prepare him for Stain and to make sure he could easily have assistance provided. The only main mistake with him was to allow Bnha to have his internship in Hosu Tsuragami. Midoriya, we need to talk in private. Woof now. Woof Aizawa, go ahead, you proved your point. Izuku, very well Manuel, you're serious eraser. You can't let him go away like that. Aizawa, he is right Manuel, we never could have prevented Ida to go against Stain for a whole week. I never should have let the kid go to Hosu in the first place. Midoriya has made as much damage control as he could. At least it will be good training and lesson for the problem child. You can go Midoriya. Tsuragami, this way please. Woof. Both the Emerald Wendigo and the chief of police got to a meeting room that was given by the hospital for police officers and pro-heroes to talk about the incident. Once inside, Izuku realized that they were both actually alone, which surprised him as he expected at least one pro-hero to be there, which was always the case when there was a topic concerning him. Tsuragami told him that they could start once Detective Tsukachi will be here. Tsukachi enters the room. Hello Midoriya, long time no see. Izuku, Detective Tsukachi, I see that you are still a beast of a few words, even after Nedzu. Anyway, glad to see you still on our side even after Hosu. You're doing God's job out here. I always knew you were more than just a human-eating monster. My instinct rarely fails me. Tsuragami, you are not my best officer for nothing Naomasa. Woof. But please, we have an important topic to talk about. Woof. Tsukachi, yes. Yes sir, you're right, the cults. Izuku, the cults, the ones made in my name. Tsukachi, yes Midoriya. As you already know, your criminal past have earned yourself quite the bunch of fanatics. Even before you changed to target only villains. Until now, all except one that will be the main topic of this little meeting, they were nothing much to worry about. It's not the first time that a new figure in the hero-villain scene gets himself some fanatics. Tsuragami, however, your case has brought this woof phenomenon to new highs. The leaked recording of your speech in UA has fueled the fanaticism, with the press filming your interventions in Hosu and an aftermath speech made by Stain about you. Woof turned them into an completely fledged out religion. Woof. Tsukachi, they already tried multiple times to reach out to you since you got arrested. You didn't know because their attempts had to through us first, and through UA after. Since you were still on the road to be civilized, we kept all of this out of your attention because we feared the consequences for doing so. Tsuragami, but now, we trust your mental health enough to know about all of this without losing yourself. Woof. Midoriya looked them in the eyes for a few seconds, before letting out some kind of growl that, from him, corresponded to a humming of understanding mixed with a bit of disappointment. He took some time to process the new informations and all the confirmations of things he already suspected. In truth, he had already met those cultists from afar. Many times when he was on the hunt he could smell them, sense them watching. He knew they were cultists. If they were dodging general attention and made sure to stay directly unnoticed, the Wendigo could smell their emotions and feel their devotion towards him. In truth, he always knew, but the hunt was always his priority, not matter what, so he simply given them no mind. But now, the police bringing up about the subject to him conveniently at the same time his obsession with the old BLD, the dream and his ascension came in, could not be a coincidence. He knew it. Something deep in his soul was yelling at him that this was meant to be, and the voices from beyond agreed, this was a sign. Now he only had one simple question, one that he knew the answer will finally show him the path he was made to take. Izuku, this main cult, the one you are the most worried of, what name does it have? The detective looked at his chief to see if he had his authorization to tell. He received an approval nod and took a deep breath before looking back at Midoriya. Tsukachi, the healing church of the old BLD, it seems that my fate must have been written in the stars, for this cult to display in their church's name, proof of their knowledge over what I covet. But it can also be a trap, and I am no fool. To verify the authenticity of this cult, I ask both of them more information about those fanatics under the pretext to be better prepared in case of an encounter. They do not question me further because for them, I have no reason to seek their attention. From the knowledge they have gathered, the healing church of the old BLD is an old cult that predate my 𝐒𝐻 and quirks by a few hundred years. They have been founded in the Victorian era a few decades before the end of the 19th century. Apparently, it originates from an old and now long-forgotten Great Britain city called Yharnam, who is said to have completely vanished after a strange plague and an unnatural fog took over the city. What happened to this city and its inhabitants back then is mostly unknown, and apart from a few historians still debating what unfolded that day, most have completely forgotten about it. We are not sure if the church today is maintained by descendants of actual Yharnamites, or if the religion had simply spread beyond the forsaken city. One thing was certain, they were becoming far more active and seems to have an obsession with the Emerald Wendigo. Nobody except Midoriya and the church knows why one got the attention of the other. Of course Izuku could try to explain what was now linking him and this cult, but there is no doubt that they would see it as nothing more but fanatic nonsense. He would not lost his time with this. They will understand once they see him found the old BLD and ascend beyond the veil. Thanks to the large-scale attack in Hosu and his almost non-stop work, Aizawa and Nedu have given him the rest of the week to do what he wanted. He was now also free to leave UA and go wherever he wanted without any restrictions or surveillance anymore. His actions during the Hosu incident have given him a good enough reputation that the populace was not scared of him anymore. Many even came to thank him and treated him as a pro-hero. To be honest, even though Nezu seemed to be more than happy to give Izuku all this freedom, he highly suspected the commission to have pressured him to do it, so they could once again bribe him to accept their offer. All of this was just too sudden to not be suspicious. Well, either way he would not complain. Now he had a proper residence inside UA and he could use all of this free time to track down this church and get the knowledge he needed. Midoriya already had a strategy to get in contact with members of this church. His sense of smell-cautious nature told him that they were usually nearby during his hunting sessions at night, pulled to him like moths to a lamp. Following them should not be very difficult, because if they really have the old BLD in common, then they will encourage him to go after them. He will just have to stay stealthy in this regard to not have heroes, police, or anyone else knowing about his personal quest. Aizawa, you really should take the rest of this week to lay off, problem child. I know that, as a workaholic myself, I'm not in the best position to call you out on that, but I also know that it is bad for health. Besides, you know that you have nothing to prove anymore. Izuku, do not fret over my health. Sensei, I was born to hunt down the wicked. It is written in my BL, a hunter must hunt a racer, for it is what makes me feel alive. Aizawa. Sight, alright, you do what you do, just remember to pack up enough food before you go. You know what would happen if you were to be caught killing again. Izuku, you know I would not. Midoriya patiently awaited the night to finally start tracking down those fanatics. There was no need to aimlessly seek them with their scent for now. All he had to do was going through his usual hunting routine and they would come to him soon enough. After that, following the cultists back to their base would not be difficult since they would want him to follow them. If his theory was correct, that is. One not long before midnight, Izuku started his usual nocturnal hunt but this time, used his favorite route back before he was caught and reintegrated into society. This should show the church that this time, he was also interested in meeting them. On their way, he picked up a few hints that the church left behind in 𝐸𝐴 cations. As he expected, they proved his theory that the healing church clearly had invited him to track them down. After 30 minutes of hunting and taking down a few unlucky small-time villains, he finally detected the scent of those he was looking for. He instantly leaped on a good observation spot while still covered in darkness to gaze upon the individuals chosen to bring him to their sanctuary. It was a group of 3 cloaked individuals who, like him, were moving quick and always kept themselves hid in shadows. One of them, at the center of the 3 and a bit taller than the others, discreetly signaled him to follow before dashing forward with the other close behind. While keeping up with them and not losing the 3 out of his sight was easy, there was something strange with the one seemingly in charge. His scent felt for obscure reasons familiar for Midoriya, even though it was clear that he never met that man before. This kept the Wendigo on high alert for the entire pursuit. In fact, his mind was so occupied by making sense of this new information while still keeping himself fast and stealthy that he had stopped only a few meters away from the cultists who had just stopped in front of an old and abandoned European cathedral in the outskirts of the city. Taken aback, once he realized the position he was in, he looked at the taller cultist of the group, who had just turned around to smile directly at him. "Welcome to our sacred sanctum, Wendigo of the full moon. Born by the old BLD, and chosen to reign over the dream. Izuku, I've come here to seek your knowledge, but there is a mystery I wish to uncover first. What do you seek from me?" "To see you ascend, and become Lord of the Hunt. Not only because it was foretold, not only because that it is needed for us to reach back Yharnam and finally bring the hunt to the wicked of mankind. Take his hood off, uncovering his face Hisashi, but because I also wish only the best for you, my son." After Hisashi Midoriya, the father of the Wendigo, revealed himself as the current leader of the healing church, Izuku was brought inside with promises to have his questions answered. His current actions would have been looked down as careless and foolish by his old self, but there was primal certitude within his heart. The voices from above reverberating in his BLD, telling him that this was the right path. He would be a fool to deny them. The inner sanctuary of the healing church was a true sight of wonder. While its outside bared the appearance of a common Gothic cathedral, the interior was mesmerizing to look at. As his father explained, the healing church was a religious order as much as it was an academy. The many parts of the religious monument have all been repurposed to serve their own designs. The front aisles were repurposed into a great library, full of tomes who seemed to be as ancient as the cathedral itself, while the nave was where the books would be read and studied. The crossing between the transepts and the main hall was holding in its center a giant and ancient telescope, directed towards a giant clear window who was now replacing the old stained glasses. It was aiming towards the full moon and the stars. The transepts have been transformed into research laboratories to study ancient artifacts and the astrological bodies, as well as the stars and the constellations. The choir was the place of worship, with its august aisles full of altars and paintings representing eldritch gods, called the Great Ones. Finally, the apse was made into a console room, with each of its chapels holding their seats. The upper level and the catacomb beneath were the living quarters. The Emerald Wendigo was taken aback by the sight. This place did not seem to belong in the real world. All eyes turned towards him once he was fully inside, and ecstatic whispers soon started everywhere, talking about a prophecy finally coming true, with the one chosen to ascend and open the veil had at last found their way to them. He was brought to the center of the apse so he could have the knowledge he seeks. "Izuku, truly impressive, but I am here for answers. I must know how to reach my fate, Hisashi. Of course, and must have many questions, my son. Let's start with who and what we are exactly. The healing church was created a long time ago during the Victorian era, in the old and now vanished city of Yharnam. Why this city? You may ask. The reason is simple. It is where it was found, inside an ancient labyrinth deep below the city. the very thing that you now seek. Izuku, the old BLD Hisashi. Yes, it was originally discovered by scholars of the 𝐎⁴ College during what was supposed to be simple archaeological expeditions. The church was founded after the BLD was studied, and its properties, as well as its origins, were found. Most of its properties are not important for you, only one is, and we will talk about it after. First, if you want to understand all of 𝐻𝑡s, you need to know about its origins. Izuku, why? The voices beyond the veil told me that the old BLD is the key. Isn't that enough? Hisashi, in practice. Yes, but if you wish to accept your destiny and embrace the future it will bring to you, then you must know how your ascension will be beyond anything you can possibly imagine. Besides, don't you wish to know in what you will ascend? To know who owns these voices that guide you? Izuku, look at the moon, the paintings. Will I become one of them? Hisashi, indeed, they are the great ones or the great gods. Little is known about their nature, their motives, and how many there are, but through long years of research made by the church we have at least a few certitudes. They are a race of eldritch gods, multidimensional beings that can exist across several planes of existence. Like you, even thought they possess quite the frightening appearance. They are sympathetic in nature. Hisashi's face began to darken, and he took a long breath before revealing the truth about what happened in Yharnam. Hisashi, however, while many of their kind were indeed benevolent and shared many kinds of knowledge with the human race, their ways of thinking and needs are very different from us. You see, as ascended and higher beings, it is impossible for them to reproduce on the higher plane, as now-born great ones would lack the insight to actually live there. So, they seek lesser species and take them as their surrogate child in the mortal world, to allow them to live in its infant stages before eventually joining them beyond the veil. Izuku, what does this have to do with my situation? Hisashi, you have been told about the beast plague, right? Izuku, yes Hisashi, this plague was the first step for them to acquire their child. By drinking their BLD, the old BLD, you change into a beast, marking the step into your ascension. You have already passed this point a long time ago, as well as a few others, in fact. Izuku, but how? To this day I still seek the old BLD. How can it already be in me? Hisashi, you already possess the old BLD because of me, my son. You are a chosen one, the first human being who has truly been born by the BLD. Your mother didn't know, and her death by you was a regrettable but necessary sacrifice. As for the old ones communicating with you, each full moon have allowed them to strengthen their bond with you. As time passed on, their old BLD replaced your mortal one more and more. Your first transformation was the old BLD finally being more present than your mortal one. Izuku, but if having their BLD is what allowed them to speak to me, why would they ask me to seek it, then? Hisashi, I think that they did not ask you to seek the old BLD in the literal sense. As I told you before, higher beings do things in a very different way than us, including communication, even between themselves. Izuku, I see my mother. Could I ever take her back? Hisashi, when you will have ascended son, almost nothing will be out of your reach. Izuku, then how can I ascend? How can I become a great one? Hisashi, first, once the old BLD will have replaced at least 95% of your mortal one, we will cleanse you from what is left of it. Then we will bring you where a great one can physically reach you. There, with a ritual we have been preparing for a long time, you will ascend and pass beyond the veil. Izuku, very well, let's not waste any more time. A day had passed since he met with the healing church and reunited with his father. When all the truth was revealed and the road towards his destiny was cleared of its fog. Now, for the very first time, he was not alone on his journey anymore. The heroes, villains, the HPSC or you, all were bribing him to become a part of a society, a world that was not meant for him. For all their claim that it was for his good sake, he was not to satisfy humanity's greedy needs. The church knew of his true purpose, and without any hesitations they joined him in his quest for godhood and getting access to the dream. Rituals and ceremonies took place to straighten his connection with the old ones who were reaching out to him since the beginning. Each of those acts made the voices clearer and more coherent. Each hour he felt his old BLD become purer and stronger. The changes made him knew that his body was preparing for his ascension. This process continued for 5 days straight, which forced him to come back and forth between UA and the inner sanctum, acting to keep up the facade. They could not suspect a thing about his night activities. He had lived enough time in the streets alone to keep heroes and police officers' curiosity about him in check. Of course, they saw how each time Izuku came back he looked and felt stronger and distant. But they simply attributed those changes to him training on his own. From what he could observe and smell, only 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐵 felt that there was something else with Midoriya's changes. When Izuku joined them back temporarily to help in their training for the license exam, he could see from the look of the crow-headed boy's eyes that he was aware of him fading farther and farther away from the mortal world. This made the Emerald Wendigo and the voices rejoice. For all his life, Midoriya never managed to get attached to anyone. Nor did he ever felt any special bond with another person, whatever how much they were nice or helped them. Well, in reality there was 2 exceptions to that fact, which were Nezu and 𝐕. He neither talked or asked his father about it, but those 2 brought a sense of kinship in his bestial BLD. Since Izuku had learned about his destined future, he thought about bringing them with him in the dream. Of course, he knew that it was not possible with Nezu. Even if the Chimera was to learn about the truth and what he could become, what he could be a part of, he already had established his place in the mortal world. Besides, he has too much responsibilities to just abandon them. But 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐵 was a different story. He was young and also intelligent, and he had smelled his curiosity and fascination towards him since the beginning. 𝐕's interest in the occult was also very obvious. His catchphrases, discussion topics, and preferred literature were obvious giveaways. More than enough time the little crow had tried to discreetly spying on him, and his sentient quirk declared his admiration towards Izuku loud enough to seal his decision. Though before this, there is one last thing to verify. Aizawa, alright everyone, that is enough training for today. You can get your stuff back and get home now. Thanks again Midoriya for the help you're providing. Izuku, it is my pleasure to help others grow. Sensei Eraser nodded to Izuku with a small smile before exiting the building first. As everyone started to go towards the locker rooms, while talking about how he was incredibly ruthless and seemingly 10 times stronger than when they fought him during their first lesson with all might, the Emerald Wendigo blocked 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐵's path. Izuku, 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐵, may we talk in private after you are ready to depart home? 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐵, oh, yes of course. It would be my pleasure, Beast of Darkness. Dark Shadow, ah. Look at that, emo boy has his feathers ruffled by 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐵, Dark Shadow. Izuku, come find me on the roof once you have changed and are ready to leave. 𝐕 nodded, before joining his classmates. A few of them were waiting for him and had seen the conversation, telling him sorry as they thought that he did not good enough and that Midoriya wanted to give him special training. He did not mind them. Izuku watched them go away and scanned around as he felt an enraged glare towards him. He suspected it to be from Bakugo, who seemed to have a peculiar hatred toward him. After everyone was done and Izuku gave message of his departure to the staff, he got to the roof where he planned to talk with 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐵. It took only 8 minutes for 𝐕 to join him on the roof, which proves that the little crow was eager to hear what he had to say. When he opened the door, the crow-headed boy was rewarded with an incredible sight. The Emerald Wendigo was standing at the edge, possessing an ethereal aura as a gigantic full moon slightly tainted in red was crowning the beast. Izuku, I have asked for this private conversation between us because there is something in your being that make you closer to me than anyone else. We are kindred beasts, you and I. 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐵, I am truly honored that you think so, great beast of the night. But I know that you are far superior than the mere mortals we are. Izuku, that could be changed, but before I propose you a future of unparalleled highs, there is something I must know. Kneel down, climb on my back, use my antlers as grips. 𝐕 was taken aback and hesitant about the request. Not that he was afraid of the beast, but he just felt unworthy to mount such a otherworldly and mighty being of the night. After a few seconds of hesitation, Dark Shadow had enough waiting and did what Izuku asked them to do, bringing a surprised and flustered 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐵 with him. Once both firmly in place, Midoriya screamed before throwing himself forward, jumping his way through the city as high speed. Once Midoriya found a high and isolated enough roof, He landed and stopped on it. Izuku, prepare yourselves, for I will reveal many things that will change your perspective of the and your future forever. Are you ready? Tokoyami, yes we are. Dark Shadow, you bet it bud. Midoriya used his smell to make sure they were truly ready and serious. Once done, he proceeded to tell them everything. Him, his family, the healing church of the old BLD, the Great Ones, the hunter's dream, Yharnam with everything that transpired there, the old BLD, the beast plague and his destiny to ascend into an old god. He did not omitted any information in his speech, even while knowing that doing so would seal Tokoyami and his quirk's fates. Izuku, as I said before, we are kindred beats, you and I wish to not reach my destiny and the dream alone cut his own wrist drink my divine BLD, so you can reborn from it then. When the time will come you will walk aside me in the dream as my first son 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐽𝐽 was torn between excitement, awe and modesty. Not only did he learn that the Emerald Wendigo was of divine origin, but he wished to share a part of his godhood with him. How could he ever accept such a gift? How could he ever pretend to be worthy of such honor? But he was chosen, right? So he can't possibly refuse. His parents would say so, they were cultists just like him. After a few minutes of hesitation and a push from Dark Shadow, he found his resolve. He bowed and humbly accepted the gift, promising that he would prove himself worthy of such honor. He cupped the sacred BLD in his hands, drank it, and fell to the ground. Midoriya watched him screech in agony as the transformation took place. Now he knew that he will never be alone. It was in a gruesome display of brutal, biological and physical mutation that the first beast of the modern age was born. Midoriya could feel his old BLD boiling in joy as it was claiming his first child. His awakening divinity sang in unison with the voices from the other old ones, while they watched Tokoyami's body morph into a vessel befitting a higher being. Cracks were heard as bones sharpened and elongated to become avian yet somehow yet human. Flesh was teared apart to let place for dark feathers and bulking muscles. Hands and legs turned completely avian, while fingers became talons and all colors except the red of 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐽𝐽's eyes faded into pure black. In the end, the two most eye-catching changes outside of his now 2.45 meters, 8,038 feet, massive build and the seemingly absence of Dark Shadow, were the 4 eyes now present on his chest with the new pair of wings. As for the previously mentioned sentient quirk, Izuku's old BLD also had an effect on him. Now merged with his owner, he has become a being of golden and dark energy vibrating thought his owner. Without the Tengu hat, Obi belt and the Shakujo staff. #LoveNow2 After 8 minutes of excruciating transformation, the new beast child rose on his new appendages with more strength than he ever possessed. Tokoyami was in state of pure joy, for after the torment that was his ascension he felt changed in the best way possible. It was not because of his power or his improved body, it was about his new vision of the world. His humanity has been left behind for him to be part of something greater. Izuku, my BLD has accepted you as worthy. How do you feel? Tokoyami, transcended free from shackles that were holding me down, my eyes are now able to see beyond a vision that I now know was limited. Izuku, good, can you sense our connection, the bound now formed between us? Tokoyami, yes, I feel connected to you like a branch is to its tree. How the flow of divine BLD feeding me comes from you. However, I can also sense a new powerful hunger growing in my being. Please, Midoriya-sama, I don't want to lose myself. 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐽𝐽 was starting to tremble and getting tense, as he was feeling some kind of primal need to go down hunting and kill anyone he came across. Realizing the danger, Midoriya ran up to him before taking the new formed beast in his powerful arms. Then, as if it was a second nature, he took control over his BLD inside Tokoyami to force the urge down. This combined with calming words he managed to whisper directly into the mind of 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐽𝐽 made him relax. At this moment, Midoriya realized the foolishness of his haste in finding a chosen child. All of this was new for him, as no one in the church could tell Izuku what influence a great one has over their chosen children. None of them had ever managed to communicate with one, and even if they did, those beings interact with their offspring very differently from one another. His wish to not reach the dream alone had clouded his better judgment. Izuku, Forgive me, 𝐒𝐭𝐴ME, for I should have awaited to be an old god and be taught how to have a chosen child. I shall not fail you again with their help. My mistake will be corrected. 𝐒𝐭𝐴ME, Midoriya-sama. Izuku, the healing church, come with me to meet them so we can prevent such events from happening again, though we should inform your mortal parents first without divulging the truth about your transformation or where we are heading. 𝐒𝐭𝐴ME. We can tell them the truth. Midoriya-sama, they are believers and followers of the dark arts like me. They will see you as the future god you are and join your church. They will not say anything. Izuku. Very well, though pray that your intuitions about them are correct. With those words, both departed to 𝐒𝐭𝐴ME's house with Izuku carrying the other. With the directions of his chosen child, they moved like shadows with incredible speed and precision. No eyes nor cameras got even a glimpse of them during the trip. The parents of 𝐒𝐭𝐴ME were very confused yet honored to see the already legendary Emerald Wendigo coming to their house, but still panicked as they were explained the situation. Thankfully, 𝐒𝐭𝐴ME was indeed correct about his parents and were already on their knees, praising and thanking the greatly embarrassed Wendigo for choosing their son worthy of his gift. He praised all the old gods that he did not have to kill them both, nor that he would have to eat them with their own mortal son present. When they had explained their new goal, 𝐒𝐭𝐴ME parents accepted to go with them to the healing church and keeping secret. It took the four of them 30 minutes at full speed to reach the healing cathedral. Thankfully, his chosen child had fully recovered and was in capacity to follow him on his own. With both adults on his back, Midoriya guided them to their secret destination without any hassle and without being seen. He was impressed and happy to see 𝐒𝐿𝐴ME already adapting well to his new body and abilities. It seemed that Dark Shadow was channeling their power to help. Izuku knocks on the massive old door. Father, I am in need of assistance. Hisashi, my son and future guiding father. I did not expect to see you before we called you back. We have taught you all we can, and we are yet to find the place for you ascension. What is it that you need? Izuku steps aside to show his company guidance to correct a foolish mistake childishly made because of an irrational fear. Points to 𝐒𝐿𝐴ME. Hisashi, I see, so you have chosen a mortal child while still not being an old god yourself. Also without possessing any knowledge about having one. A foolish mistake indeed, my son, and a very irresponsible one too. Please, follow us inside. Izuku, can we prevent him from ever going feral? Hisashi, yes. Thought it will depend of how much old blood he has received. We also need to determine how deep your connection is, see how much you are able to influence the boy, as you are not an old god yet. What about those two others? Izuku, they are his parents. Have no worries, they will be faithful and trustworthy. Hisashi, and if they happen to lose this faith? Izuku, then I will take all responsibilities and kill them myself. 𝐎𝐻𝑢𝐻𝑢 was flabbergasted to say the least. A few seconds ago, 𝐒𝐿𝐴ME's parents had just called him to inform that their son had an important quirk evolution that massively mutated his body, and so would not be present for a few days. While such event was not unheard of and not that surprising for the crow-headed boy, he had not expected to learn that his most problematic child to be with him. Apparently, Midoriya was present when the mutation had happened and he was planning to stay so he could help 𝐒𝐿𝐴ME acclimate with his new form. His surprise, however, turned to unease and suspicion when he later received a photograph of his student's brand new appearance. 𝐒𝐿𝐴ME's now mutated body was far more darker and bestial-like than just the bird head his student had before. But more than that, there was a truly horrible and otherworldly aura of death and savagery oozing out of this new form while keeping a high level of intelligence, which was totally in contradiction with his calm and level-headed student. Normally, he would never judge someone by just how they look on a picture, as it is profoundly illogical. Besides, it was by not making that exact kind of mistake that they are already turning the mighty and feared Emerald Wendigo into a future pro-hero. But what he was seeing in those eyes was something he ever saw once when he had to help the police take down a horrible cult of dangerous fanatics in Tokyo, and this was greatly concerning him. Before his classes of the day, he brought his concerns to Nezu and the potential consequences of Midoriya's involvement in this, fearing that 𝐒𝐿𝐴ME and his parents may develop some kind religious obsession with the Wendigo. His concerns coming from the fact that he had met all the parents of his students right after the USJ and the 𝐒𝐿𝐴ME were the fanatic kind, Their reaction when he told them how Midoriya prevented a catastrophic event with their son's class that day proved it quite clearly. The principal was understanding of what he was asking, but remembered Aizawa that they have no say in what the student and their families do outside of the school. Nor could they even dare to tell the parents how to take care of their children after UA2 latest and almost failure to keep their students safe. With that said, Eraserhead sighed in defeat before getting to his class and announced the news to the rest of the class. The brats of course showed great worry towards their classmate with what happened with Stain. Fortunately, the upcoming exam before summer break would prove to be a good enough distraction for the following days. Aizawa, all right, brats. The exam is now in only 2 days, so you have been given those last 42 hours to prepare for it. The many gyms of the school are yours to use as much as you like, unless you plan to completely ruin them. By the way, Midoriya and Tokoyami are both back and are currently training in Gym Beta, so feel free to use this opportunity to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Kirishima, we got to see Mido Bro and Fumi Bro again. Momo, I'm really quite curious about Tokoyami's quirk mutation and see how he fares with it. Hope it's not affecting him too much. Tsuyu. Yeah, from what Mr. Aizawa said, the change was quite massive on his body. Bakugo, don't care about bird brain, what I want is to beat that F******ing monster. Jiro, seriously Bakugo, what is your problem with Midoriya? Denki, whatever with that, bro Bakugo, not your business, extras. Aizawa, enough. What are you all doing here anyway? Get to Gym Beta. Midoriya and 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐽 are already waiting for you there. So move up. I need my sleep. With this last declaration from their teacher, they all took their stuff and departed to the gym while talking between themselves. Since they had not been shown the new form of their bird-headed student, their main activity while preparing for training was how he would look like. The most logical ones expected him to be simply more crow-like, while the others went completely fantasy-like with their imagination. After 30 minutes they finally reached their destination, most of them still lost in their thoughts on how Tokoyami would look like, while a few students like Ito were quite happy that Aizawa was not with them, as he would have not been happy with the time it took them. With a burst of excitement, the class burst through the door to find a sight that took them aback. In the middle of the gym stand the new terrifying form of 𝐒𝐿𝐵 on one knee, before the towering figure of the Wendigo, whose one of his massive hands was resting on Tokoyami's head. As both monstrous beings heard the rest of their classmates burst inside the gym, both turned to them with an inquisitive gaze. The bird student got back on his new full high, helping himself on his talons thanks to a Shakujo staff he now held as a weapon. 𝐒𝐿𝐵 was now standing at 2.5 meters, 82 feet, tall, reaching to Midoriya's waist in his usual hunched position with a far more muscular and massive build. He was only wearing a marin obi sash. His appearance as a reminder to most students looked at the new form of their classmate in disbelief, apprehension and slight fear. While their imagination had went wild when it come to this, it was mostly to joke around and lousing out a bit of pressure for the upcoming exam. They never thought that their friend's transformation would actually go that far. Midoriya being right next to 𝐒𝐿𝐵 in his own very frightening look did not help very much, and there was the topic of what they saw before the two of the beats noticed them. Denki, to Tokoyami is that you? Tokoyami, yes, it's me. Have you not been informed? Class 1A flinched a bit when they heard their classmate's new voice coming out of this creature beak. It was without a doubt belonging to 𝐒𝐿𝐵, while more deep and raspy there was still the same person behind it. While they all started to break into a frenzy, the tense atmosphere was brought higher by a sudden series of explosions. All looked at Bakugo, that was propulsing himself at full speed with his quirk towards Izuku with rage in his eyes. Bakugo, what did you do to him, you F******* monster? Todoroki, Bakugo, wait. Seeing this, Midoriya assumed a combat stance while igniting himself on fire. But, as Katsuki got close and before the situation could get any worse, Tokoyami moved forward and spread his left wing. This caused a wind current to appear at Katsuki's right, deviating the blonde trajectory and redirect him towards himself. Before the explosive problem child could do anything, Tokoyami struck him to the ground with his staff before landing his talons on his chest, immobilizing him. Tokoyami, enough, Bakugo. Midoriya has done nothing to me, nor he is the reason for such a transformation. All that happened to me was nothing but a natural mutation of my quirk factor and nothing else. Bakugo, 𝐤𝐫𝐢 ********. Ida. 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐵 is right, Bakugo. This reaction of yours is far from appropriate. Bakugo, shut the 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐵. Enough. Now, may I remind you all that you are here to prepare for an exam who is happening in 42 hours. Izuku, all of you now better be ready. Hours and days passed fast as Class 1A trained relentlessly in preparation for their first term final exam. During the following and last days before the exam they had the pleasure or for certain, displeasure to fight again against the Wendigo. But most importantly, they could fight 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐵 in his new form, one that turned him into a behemoth of a fighter. From the very first match, 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐵 shown that what he did to stop Bakugo was but a taste of his new abilities. Now 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐵 was no longer hiding behind his quirk and was fighting up front, taking full advantage of his new bulkier body and the devastating force that were his claws and talons. He used his newfound power of wind manipulation to move, dodge, fly, attack and destabilize his adversaries. You could see how he was trained by Midoriya, as he was using his bestial strength to send powerful yet quick and precise strikes while always staying in movement. Where 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐵 lacked in weight to overwhelm his opponents or experience stealth compared to Izuku, he made it up with this additional range provided by his Shikujo staff, Shaolin Kung Fu for body conditioning, Taekwondo, and Jiu-Jitsu for unharmed combat, and finally Biojutsu for using the Shikujo staff. All of his classmates and UA's staff were baffled at how devastating in combat 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐵 had become in so little time. The bird-headed teen gave as an explanation that since his transformation, his brain had become 100 times more efficient. As for Midoriya, the more time passed and the more otherworldly he became in all ways. He was stronger, faster, more agile and most importantly incredibly more durable each day, to the point where he received Bakugo's strongest explosion point blank without even flinching. As for his fire powers, they were becoming so strong that his BLD was turning into molten lava once released from his body. More than once did they have to call Cementos to come in and help clean up. With all of this, both 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐵 and Midoriya became Class 1A main fighting bosses, and they were showing no mercy to any challengers each time. This earned them quite the reputation in UA, enough for the other first-year class to ask for their assistance in training. They agreed each time and ended up being the official coaches for the first year. Fortunately for both of them, the church did not brought up important discoveries or news during those restless days. Alas, the dreaded day of the exam finally came for their classmates who were stressed out of their mind for the upcoming tests. You could see from the beginning who had studied enough for the written part and who did not, which in that regard brought no surprises. However, both knew something that all the others did not. This year, the physical exam will not be against UA robots like they think. They can only hope that the training they put the other through would not go to waste. Aizawa, all right brats, welcome to the physical portion of your first term final exam, where we will truly see if you have made progress and are still capable of being worth more than what you are now. Present Mike, you really have to be so harsh with them Shota. Anyway little listeners, to make it more clear for all of you, this exam will be different from any other physical test you ever had. This time, we are testing you on your weaknesses. Midnight, since the beginning of this year, we had plenty of occasions to see you fighting, train and determine where you all lacking the most. Until now you worked hard to improve all your basics and strengths in combat. Now her lips asterisk time to punish where it hurts. All of 1A were starting to sweat bullets and sending worried looks to each other. Not many of them trained very hard to mitigate their weaknesses on their own. Only through the training of Midoriya and bestial 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐵 did they worked on it. Speaking of them, they also just realized that the Wendigo was with the teachers and 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐵 was apart from everyone Uraraka. Excuse me sensei, but why is there so many teachers with you? And Midoriya. Nedzu pops out of Aizawa's scarf. Excellent question, Ms. Uraraka. Mina, PR Principal Nedzu. So kawaii. Ida, what is he doing in sensei's scarf? Nedzu, get down on the ground now. Now children, let's get back to the topic at hand. The reason why almost all the staff is present here is because we have decided to change the exam because of this year's terrible events. Aizawa, a few of you have found themselves in the crossfire between the pros and the LOV, and if it wasn't for Midoriya, you would have been directly against them at the USJ. We have no doubt that those villains have made UA their primal target, which means that you will most certainly have to go against them in the near future. Nezu, while of course, we will do everything in our power to avoid such confrontation, we can't guarantee that it will never happen. Unfortunately, no security systems can counter teleportation, only inform us of their presence as soon as possible. This is why, to prepare all of you for what is to come, you will fight all might. Land in front of the students your teachers. Denki, we are going Jiro, to fight Momo, the teachers. Izuku, as well as myself, all of Class 1A except Tokoyami paled a few shades lighter as they learned the news. Most of them, though, they were simply screwed, and a few almost fainted, while the most confident started to get cocky as usual. Those last ones got a dark glare from Midoriya, telling them how they were about to visit hell for this display. Nezu, now children, don't be so scared. Obviously we are not making you defeat us the only way to pass the exam, that would too much for any of you. In fact, trying to do so is strongly discouraged. Gets cuffs from a teacher behind. There are two ways for you to pass. One is to attache those cuffs to your assigned opponent who will be handicapped, the other way being escaping through an exit before the time runs out. Aizawa, as you already know, there is going to be a summer camp in a few weeks. Those of you that fail this exam will not go and suffer here with a remedial course. Sadistic grin. Class 1A, pale even more. Aizawa, all right brats, your groups and order you'll go have already been decided. Everyone get to the observation room. Tokoyami, we believe you are strong enough to go against one of us alone, and you're first. Follow ectoplasm, he will be your opponent. The first term final exam was starting its newly dreaded physical part, as students would be put against their teacher to ensure their future confrontation with the LOV. Tokoyami, in his new and glorious form of feathers and shadows, was standing at the beginning of a great complex. This is where he would be facing the pro-hero ectoplasm alone, deemed worthy of doing so that way in contrary to the rest of his classmate. He was standing straight and imposing with his tall stature, proud and confident as he looked down on the place that would host his display of power. And he had all the rights to act that way. After all, he was the ascending god's chosen son and the first child of the hunt. But he was no fool and would not fail by succumbing to overconfidence. His god was watching him, and he would not dare to disappoint Midoriya. All the Wendigo's wise words were ingrained into his mind. The hunt was endless, relentless, and unforgiving. While you live and bathe in the heart of its glory, the slightest mistake or lack in your concentration will bring you to your doom and a painful death. Not even higher beings are out of its predatory reach. His god confessed him that even he himself could fall. Izuku, but if such event was to happen, there should be no ill feelings towards the victor, as it would be only nature running its course. I would die and my killer would ascend, taking my place as it should be. Personally, 𝐒𝐭𝐚𝐲 could not fathom to see or even imagine such an event occur. Izuku was his holy father and savior, while he and his parents were his humble servants. He was to become his first apostle, and if any hunter were to prove vile and foolish enough to try slaying their god, they would have to kill them first. When he had declared this fact alongside his own two parents in front of the Emerald Wendigo, the former was conflicted and worried about the information. Happy because of their devotion, yet worried that it would make them go against the hunt. However, Tokoyami had no more time to have such thoughts parasite his mind. The alarm that would start his test would soon resonate, and he could already feel his opponent taking place in the other side of this complex. Gripping his staff with more force and tightening his muscles as a predator would right before a surprise attack, he could feel dark shadow within him shivering in anticipation. With the feeling of his god's inquisitive stare weighing on his whole being, he took a long breath and fixed his gaze ahead with determination. Loud alarms starting to resonate throughout the building. Nezu, all right young Tokoyami, your test begins now. Tokoyami, the time has come, the hunt begin. I will not disappoint you, my lord. As soon as the test began, 𝐒𝐭𝐚𝐲 leaped to the nearest shadow before extending his wings and letting out a primal, deafening screech. While everyone except Midoriya were temporarily stunned by the sound, A great mass of pure shadow and gold started to form on the bestial crow's stomach. Once reaching a significant size, it slithered away from his body before separating into multiple, smaller masses. Those fragments of condensed shadow soon morphed into dark and bloody ravens with golden eyes and talons barely bigger than normal ones. Those were the carrion crows, his scouts and messengers, eyes and ears to be spread everywhere to overwatch the hunt. They were his dark shadow. Once he had sent them away to learn the entire layout and most impotently locate his prey, he himself merged and disappeared onto the darkness. His carrion crows, as he was already receiving information from his dozen shadows, he sneered as he remembered what the rat principal told them before beginning the exam. How can they possibly offer fleeing as a way to pass this test? Promoting such cowardliness and weakness of the highest degree is to create future preys, unworthy of the hunt. For a hunter to become stronger, he must taste the bitter, iron taste of BLD and defeat and reawaken wiser. He was neither a coward nor a weakling. He was the apostle of the hunt, child of divinity, and the old BLD was flowing in his veins. He was a hunter first and foremost, and for that he shall not come back without a trophy. Now, with his shadows positioned, he possesses all the knowledge he should ever need. It was time to strike. Emerging from the shadow of a clone in the middle of an opened area, he jumped in the air, creating powerful ascending current, sending all the clones present upward with him. Destroying them all in seconds with bolts of darkness and dagger-shaped feathers catapulted from his wings and body, he observed them all fading away, making sure his real prey was not one of them. Once confident in this fact, he leaped to the nearest corridor leading to the exit. While he had no intention of using the cowardly way of winning, being at the exit would be the best way to lure his prey to him. Dozens of petty decoys were present to stop his progress, all molded to shreds with powerful yet precise blows. Talons tearing at flesh while staff breaking bones, torrents of wind shredding any stances and semblance of footwork. The bestial avian creature smiled as he was destroying any signs of opposing forces, feeling faces paling in the observation room from here, knowing that if all those clones were real entrails and BLD would fall in abundance. Rooms after corridors repeating one after the other with all variants of resistance, none slowing 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐽 more than the other. He relentless yet strategic, savage yet controlled, constantly and instantly adapting to any new layouts and opposing forces put against him. Sometimes he called his carrion crows in for distraction, finally revealing them to his opponents since they had already fulfilled their main mission. Soon enough he found himself at the end where his real prey waiting for him there. Ectoplasm. Color me surprised, young 𝐒𝐿𝐵. I didn't thought you would go for the exit way of winning with that new form and powers of yours. 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐽. Make no mistakes, duplicating hero, a predator never flee from his prey. Getting to the exit was simply the best way to bring you straight to me after making clear that no clones of yours, whatever the amount, would stop me from passing this test. Ectoplasm. I see. I suppose this is why you went through the route where I would put the most obstacles in your way. A clever strategy in the end, showing great assurance in your skills. Now, time to see if it was a good call or merely arrogance. 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐽 jumped down from his platform to land in front of his opponent in the middle of the last room. Ectoplasm called back all of his clones before merging them into one giant and far more resilient double of himself. Meanwhile, 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐽 was swarmed by all his carrion crows, merging them all back to him. Not long after both were done, the bestial avian took off while creating two tornadoes infused with his shadows. Giant kicks and shoulder charges were avoided left and right while projectiles were sent to the behemoth, who constantly had to navigate between the tornado and not fall from the gust of winds sent to trip him. While most spectators in the observation room were starting to call out 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐽's imminent failure because of the timer, Midoriya and most teachers saw better. Most of 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐽's moves were calculated to force the real ectoplasm protected behind his giant clone into a dark corner. Once the right opportunity presented itself, the avian predator let out his nefarious screech to immobilize his opponent before diving and disappearing into the shadow cast by the giant's latest kick. When the real pro hero came back to his senses, he was against 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐽's chest, trapped in his grip. With a clawed hand resting on his throat and ready to tear it with any signs of struggle, 𝐒𝐭𝐴𝐽 was declared the victor. The day before the exam, while Midoriya would normally be helping training class 1A with the assistance of Tokoyami in their designated gym, Zetsu had called him and the rest of the teachers to visit the facility where the exam would take place the day before it did. At first, Zetsu, All Might, and Aizawa had wished for him to be part of the teachers that would fight and test the students, but he refused when he learned that he would have to purposely handicap himself. He was a born hunter, divine origins or not, restrictions in direct combat were against his very nature. From a strategic standpoint, there was no greater aberration for the Wendigo than keeping your own abilities locked to train a newbie. Failures and humiliations are the best teachers there are. Facing death in the eyes forces you to fight beyond your limits, to adapt and overcome. In fact, the incredible restraint he always had to impose on himself to fight the other students or villains he had faced after his capture to avoid killing had always fueled a boiling and deep frustration inside his being. The hunt of monsters and beasts is unforgiving, deadly, and without mercy. Whatever form it take, there is neither kindness or rules for the evil and depraved of this world. And keeping their students sheltered from such cruel truth is nothing but a disservice to them. This explanation was received with mixed feelings, and the stupidest argument he got in response was that doing so would discourage 95% of the students before they make it to the end. He would have loved to kill the professor who made that argument to him right then and there. It was basically telling him that 95% of their students were not cut out to be heroes, a profession that leads to forced retirement or death for its practitioners in 68% of cases, and yet they wanted to send them unprepared. How the mighty have fallen since ancient times. In fact, if it were up to him, Class 1A would still have been sent to USJ when the attack took place. But unfortunately, his eyes were not yet open at the time. His hunter instinct and the vague echo of the voices of the ancient gods were all he possessed at the time, deprived of the knowledge about his divine origin and the sacred hunt. Remembering that, he would probably be on the side of those stupid teachers right now, if only he was to be as ignorant as before. How dreadful it is to even think about such possibility. However, as they quickly dropped the subject knowing that no one would change their opinion on the matter, Midoriya still had a special request for the principal. While he still refused to be directly part of the exam since he would not handicap himself, there was a student in 1A that infuriated him to no end, and he wished to teach him an important lesson. He did not care if his special test would count for the exam or not, nor what the other teachers thought about it, he would do it. Thankfully, it was apparent that everyone wholeheartedly agreed with his special lesson and test, even though it was very extreme. Aizawa and Nizu were especially delighted with the idea. Zetsu, all right students, with the last group being done with their test now, this marks the end of the first term final exam. We all do hope that each one of you have learned valuable lessons from it, and are now even more motivated to go beyond plus ultra. As the principal finished his little speech, the class was losing its life in discussions about how they performed, the modification of the test, and the sympathy they had for those who failed. While some boasted about how superior they were Bakugo and others were lamenting about their failure, they did not notice the linea of teachers blocking the exit before they hit them. Midnight, where do you think you're all going, sweetings? Mina, well, the exam is over. So Aizawa, the exam is over, yes, but when did we give you the permission to leave? Present Mike, there is going to be one last test, only last lesson for all of you little listeners. Though only 2 of you are directly going to be involved. Denki, and who are. Zetsu, creepy smile Shoto Todoroki. Izuku, and me all turned their heads towards the Wendigo who was towering over them with his massive frame, while also radiating heat. Because he mostly stayed behind and silent during the entire exam, they had almost completely forgotten he was here. Some did not and were still asking themselves why he was present if it was to do nothing at all. Midoriya was never with them without having a role to play in what was going on. One of them was the aforementioned Shoto Todoroki, whose interest had just been piqued. Todoroki, what kind of test will it be? Aizawa, you will be sent down to the False City block where Bakugo's group have been sent to fight All Might, only this time the objective is different. There will be 15 special mannequins that will serve as civilians you will have to protect against Midoriya. You will have 10 minutes to keep them safe while your adversary's only goal will be to destroy them. Izuku, You and I will have no restrictions or handicaps whatsoever. We have no escape routes, no exterior help, no valid reasons to hold back. Just like in a real situation, you will be facing an opponent that will show no mercy and who has no rules. Nedzu. This little exercise won't change your exam results, but it will teach you all a very crucial lesson. One you desperately need to learn, especially with the latest events of this year. Midoriya rightly reminded us of this fact. All Might. While Todoroki and Midoriya will be the only one of you directly participating in this event, the rest will stay here to observe and hopefully learn as much as young Shoto. Midnight. All right, darlings, all in position. Everyone went on their way to the observation room except Midoriya and Shoto, who both laked towards the false city block where the test would happen. While they did, Shoto had his gaze glued on the Wendigo's back as he was theorizing. His guts told him that this test was not initially planned by the teachers, and that it was Izuku's idea. He was also feeling that Midoriya had specifically selected him for a specific reason. Todoroki, what are you planning, Midoriya? Why did you choose me specifically? Izuku, UA has sheltered you all from the grim reality. For far too long in the future, you will be facing opponents without mercy nor rules. The hunt is never under someone's total control. No one can decide its outcome in advance. There is no plan who fully survives first contact with the prey. As for your second question, your failure shall hopefully prove enlightening. Todoroki, what makes you think I will fail? Izuku, what makes you think you're going to whinge? You, students, should know that no amount of determination can compensate for your lack of experience today. You will all witness the full consequences of failure. As Todoroki was about to retort, their elevator arrived to their destination. As both combatants nodded to each other before going towards their respective starting points, Midoriya spoke one last sentence as he disappeared. Out of sight. One that sent a chill through Todoroki's spine, even if he did not understand it. Izuku, very venators apparianter, cum sanguis abundanter flut. Meanwhile in the observation room, Denki, what was that? What did he say? Momo, I have no idea, though I'm pretty sure it was Latin. I recognize sanguis, but not the other words. Mina, what does it mean? Nedzu, BLD children, it means BLD. Back in the fake city when the signal to start the test was given, Todoroki had expected the deadly silence and faint sights of a shadowy, hulking mass, both synonym of the Emerald Wendigo. He and the rest of Class 1A had trained under him and studied his techniques long enough to know how Midoriya operated, especially in that kind of rural environment. Never did he expect the monstrous cries, 𝐒𝐻𝐽𝐫 beast cries, the shaking ground of the beast charging in fury, and the multiple car-sized boulders made of concrete and stone coming at him from the main street. This time, Midoriya was not going for his usual stealthy approach. After wreaking havoc in his way, he burst into the plaza where Todoroki and his targets were standing, tearing through a crash truck by ripping it apart and melting what he could not break with his fire. There he stood, towering over all with raging fury in his eyes, who were both fixed on his opponent. He lowered himself in his favored combat position, willing his flames to extinguish. He will show his adversary how useless ice is against him, and if Todoroki still refused to use his fire, he will be punished with the gruesome consequences of his failure. From the very beginning, the young son of Endeavor was put on edge. He had to create walls after walls of ice to protect not only himself, but the civilians he had to protect right next to him. It was a relentless attack-defense situation with giant projectiles, sometimes even on fire, rained down on him from all sides and angles. He was put against an adversary who managed to be as savage as he was precise and calculated. For 8 minutes he was standing still, in the middle of a little plaza, protecting himself and a dozen mannequins all around him. Soon enough, the marks of exhaustion and overusage of his ice were growing and showing rapidly. As he started to really slow down, the Wendigo stopped going left and right and started to sprint straight to the civilians he was supposed to protect. With a mix of exasperation and desperation, he threw the largest wave of ice he could straight to his bestial adversary, with hope to end the fight right there. However, his cocky grin quickly turned into an expression of horror when his attack shattered into millions of pieces the instant it made contact with Izuku, who did nothing to evade nor defend against it. This short moment of shock was all that Midoriya needed to leap at his opponent and grab him with one hand, bringing the boy to his face while tightening his grip to the point where he could hear bones cracking under the pressure. Izuku, I am a Wendigo. Ice is useless against me, fiery body or not. With that, he slammed the young son of Endeavor on the ground before releasing him. Then he went to position himself over the civilians in a way his opponent could witness what he was about to do once he had recovered enough. With the eyes of a severely injured and worn-out Todoroki on him, he started his lesson. Izuku, the hunt of monsters and beasts is unforgiving, deadly, and without mercy whatever form it take. There is neither kindness or rules for the evil and depraved of this world. You lock away half of your powers, because you have yet to witness the consequences it has against the worst of what you will face here and now. You will Todoroki, 𝐻𝐸𝐽. This is what all of Tis is about. I will not give in walk off whatever you're doing this by your own will, or my father's. I will not use his fires. Izuku, then watch the BLD flow in abundance.